are most welcome here. I so appreciate all of the insight, your comments, your creative inspiration that you bring to me. And if you are a patron of this podcast, a special heartfelt thank you for investing financially in the work and the project that's being done on the channel. I am looking forward to talking to you. I've done a lot. I've had a very long break for the Thanksgiving holiday here in the States, and I've had a chance to put my hands on a lot of different projects, whether that's planning or finishing. And so I've got quite a few things to talk about. As part of the project planning, I thought it would be really fun for the month of December to upload once a week a small documentation, or I use the word tutorial very loosely, of different projects that I'm making for friends and family. And I wanted to start off with this project behind me, working with birch bark. So I've made a number of paper chains using this material. And I also wanted to catalog, just kind of putting together some found materials from the outdoors into our, I use the word wreath, but it's a bunch, and how I kind of pulled that together. So yeah, so kind of like a Vlogmas, but it wouldn't be every day. So that would be one project. And then another project I had in mind was these felt ornaments. I've been making these for years. And so going through the different materials that I use and the process, and specifically going through the blanket stitch. So, you know, if you have items laying around your house and you wanted to make some ornaments this year, this would be a avenue for you. But you will need some felt, handmade or otherwise. But I'll have materials lists, etc., for all of these different things that I've done. So that was another thought. Another little document I wanted to do is these custom journal covers. And so I'm making these for quite a few people this year. I love the idea of being able to customize using material, especially if it's material that you love, but it doesn't really fit a quilt, or you don't want to make clothing out of it, but you wanted to work with it. So, or using up scraps. So again, a lot of these gifts are kind of driven by the leftovers of other projects. And so, yeah, it's a nice way to kind of go through your scraps and stash and pull together a whole new kind of life and existence for them. So the kind of gathered materials, the journal, the felt ornament are going to be three kind of how-tos. And then the last one is going to be a turning of the year spread for the Oracle journal and cards, and my process of moving through that, you know, where I'm going to take that for the end of the year and what that spread will look like, materials associated with it, etc. So that's going to be kind of my contribution to Vlogmas once a week. And I'm really looking forward to kind of putting those smaller tutorials together. For those of you that are patrons, there will not be an additional charge for any of those. Those will be free to all. So looking forward to putting that together for you for the holiday season. So let's see, what have I been working on? As I said, I've been kind of mad here with all sorts of different materials. And I was working with books and journals, of course. The knitting. I continue on the Bressay. I'm working on the sleeve. I don't know if elves come in the night and undo everything I've done, but for some reason, knitting an inch is taking me forever. Probably doesn't help that I've knit 3 hats in the time that I could have probably knit this sleeve, but yeah, so working away, almost done on sleeve 1, which means that there is a second sleeve, and then this project will be off. I had high hopes of finishing this for 2021. I'm not sure I'm gonna meet the deadline, but cross your fingers. I also knit and finished this hat by Bunnymuff Designs. I can't remember the name of it now, the Woodlands hat. Comes with 3 different charts, so it has mushrooms, owls, and a fawn. And I chose to do the mushrooms. I knit this out of leftover scraps of Cashmere people yarns, and I think I bought this as a kit, these 2 colors. And I knit this up for myself, and yeah, it was a really beautiful, fast, fun knit. I did amend the crown. I took out a repeat of design because I wanted this to be more of a beanie than an actual slouch hat. So the fit did end up being fine, even though I adjusted for that in the kind of cowgirl style. But you can make this much slouchier, more material in the before the crown. So that I got done and off the needles, made my own pom-pom, which I love. I also cast on for a gift. I'm knitting this out of a yarn that my friend brought back for me from Chile. This is the Chile sheep. It is, I believe, a Rambouillet derivative, and she got me the natural color brown and the natural color cream. And the hat is, this is definitely an Aran weight. And so I'm knitting this on a US 8, and I think I did the brim on a 7, and I did the rest of the color work on an 8, and I'm knitting the extra large size. So there's 3 sizes you can do, but I think they're all the sizing is generated through your needle gauge. So that is going fast and furious for the holidays. I also knit and finished a hat called the Owlery. I knit that for my nephew, and I knit it using Biches and Buches yarns. They're Lambswool in two natural colors, so the dark and the light. I gave it to him this weekend, and yeah, he loves that he's wearing it. So that is kind of a Hedwig inspired hat motif. And he was very clear that it should be a white owl on a dark gray background. So man after my own heart, my nephew of mine. So that got finished off the needles. I knit that on a US 2.5, and that went quite quickly as well. So lots of hats as a way, I think, to not attend to the Bressay sleeve. So it's worked out fine for, you know, I'm keeping my head warm, but this sweater is definitely in need of some serious attention. As I knit my nephew a hat, I picked up some Ralma Fennel for mittens for my niece, and I found a sweet little pattern with a pony head on it for her, and I'm doing it in teal and like a natural gray heather. So those are going on the needles on a US 2.5. I'm always a little bit wary of you know, 2 mittens versus 1 hat, but I'm gonna have to commit because her brother got a knitted hat. So that's going on the needles probably tonight, and with any luck that'll be done for a stocking at Christmas. Let's see, I think that might be it for the fiber content. I've also had an opportunity to do some excursioning. I spoke at the Northeast Hand Spinners Gathering open house on November 6th, and that was held in Belfast. So I made my way to Fiddlehead Artisan Center, which is a really lovely shop. They have a lot of different materials there, from quilting to sashiko to, you know, different stitching and sketching and drawing. So it is truly an artisan supply store. And I found this book, Yoko Saito's Scandinavian Quilts, and I picked it up because it was not only really interesting projects, but it was beautifully photographed and very inspiring. And there's quite a few projects in here that I could see myself making, and it does revolve around hand applique and hand stitching. So the projects are nice and small, and again, like I said, do lend themselves to hand work, which is something of interest to me. I do have quite a few quilts that I can piece on machines and have done on the long armor, but really at the end of the day, how many quilts does one person need? My niece and nephew both have theirs. My grandmother had made quilts, so my mom has quilts. And so I was looking for something where I could kind of still participate in that arena, but would focus more on smaller projects. And this book seemed perfect for that. So I started a project in this book. I'm working on a little kind of shuttle case. It's called the Mushroom Trug, and it has these hand stitch applique mushrooms on it. When I was excursioning the weekend to Fiddleheads, I also had a chance to meet my friend Sue in Portsmouth, and we went to the Portsmouth fabric shop there. And I found all these beautiful Japanese taupe fabrics. And this is what's recommended in Saito's work. And they're kind of textured. Obviously you can see the color palette is very muted, and just really fun to kind of build pictures through them. So I picked up a couple of these when I was there, and it felt kind of fortuitous because the lady had said that they had been in the back forever and nobody had put them out for sale. And so I found them and the book in the same weekend. So I was able to come home and start on this kind of applique, hand-turned applique. So that means that you lay the piece down and you're turning the seam, the edge of your fabric as you stitch. So it is potentially a little fiddly, although I did have success, and I found a couple Japanese YouTube wasn't really too well. They are tutorials, and they use tweezers to turn as they're going, and that made a lot of difference for me. So yeah, so I'm working away on that. I traced the pattern onto the fabric, and then I wax paper down the pattern for the applique, cut that out with using freezer paper, and then put it onto the fabrics. And it requires quite a bit of small, tiny hand stitching, which I love. So that is on the go as an experiment, but I am still loving looking at that book. Speaking of hand stitching, I am still working on my marshma. This is a new marshma. I have finished hand stitching the tree, and I just need to add a few more elements. So this is done on a wool woven fabric that's been fulled. So it's been put through the washing or some sort of agitation. And I have new elements to add, but I'm looking forward to some more. I just love doing slip stitch. So also in hand stitching, I received another book in the mail, and I'm a huge fan of Yumiko Higuchi's embroidery work. I have all of her books. I think I have all of her books. And she just published this Embroidered Animals, Wild and Woolly Creatures to Stitch and Sew. And I just, again, for me, a lot of this is inspirational, whether that's color choices or the projects that have been made. And I just like looking at them, so, and using the patterns. So this is a really nice book. It has a complement of different actual products that you can make, but also just the visual of how to put together the animals. So there's a variety of themes. So there's like kind of jungle animals and farm animals, reindeer, ducks, cows, so, and how to. So you also obviously get the patterning. So both super fun. I love it when I find, or you know, one of my favorite authors publishes something new to put on the bookshelf and peruse. I find it really relaxing to sit and look at it and dream a little bit. So nice to have both of these books to be thinking about that. The last thing that I thought I would talk about, I have wanted to start it for a while, and my friend who lives on the pond this summer got me really interested in bookmaking and paper, and I had watched a daily challenge on Creative Bug, which was the Altered Book Challenge. And Lee purchased and gave to me this vintage copy of Heidi. And I love the book cover. And I knew I wanted to work with this book as my altered book. And so I kind of started with my typical stamps, stickers, fabric, but I knew that I wanted to push the boundaries of my go-to mediums and, use different collage elements. And so I was able to take advantage of these magazines I've had for a while called The Main Way. My brother got me this subscription for Christmas. And instead of throwing them away, because they have beautiful photographs in them, hand-drawn elements, landscapes, and they are all about the state that I live in, which is so important to me, that concept of place, as you know. I decided to use those images, more photography, more color, yeah, so you'll see that I've got already started, and I did start with a pocket fold, an origami pocket. I also included some coloring and stamping on the front, fabric that should look kind of familiar to you stylistically. I gessoed some pages. Gesso is a preparation medium. I think it's chalk based for canvas, but on these book pages, it's helpful if you want to lay down more paint, watercolor, etc., to prepare them with this gesso medium. I have black and white, so I prepared a few pages just so that they were ready to go when I sat down with the book. I also did a found word poem, which I really enjoy doing. So if you're looking at a page and you want to do something with it, but you're not sure, you're feeling overwhelmed with all of the, bric-a-brac collage elements, going through and picking out words or sentences that you like and blacking out the rest is a nice way to move through a page that I have found. So in this particular found word, my challenge was, this is the introduction, which didn't have a lot of interest. It was more kind of a informative, informational piece about the author. But I was able to move through that, and this is what I picked out. Perhaps he liked the way she played the harp, a refuge in time of war. She went on alone, the little girl who lived in the mountains and the sounding forest. So that was my found word poem. I wanted to work with, again, the images that are non-traditional to me. So these kind of big, colorful pieces. And so I found this door that I thought would be really fun to use. I tipped in a new page of this beautiful fall scene. I did some cutting out of fussy cutting and creating scenes, cutting out windows, all of those pieces. And that's kind of where I stopped. But again, you don't have to work the book from front to back. You can find an illustration that you love. You can work on that page. You can cut pages out. So again, if you find, you have a favorite book, you have a second copy, you want to just work with that text, this altered book is a really nice way to do that while preserving elements of the illustrations or the front and back cover, and being able to sit down and not having any expectation on what's going to happen on that page. So I am finding that this is kind of thematically turning out to be wintry and fall and feel. No surprise there. Lots of forest elements. I think that's the Heidi piece coming through. Again, but who knows what will happen as we move further into it. So the found book has been really challenging, and I like that about it. I kind of get into it and it's really hard for me to stop and leave a page unfinished or half finished. And so I like kind of working with that angst. That's a positive angst to work with versus worrying about work or those types of things. So yeah, so kind of that creative opportunity to work with some of those feelings has been motivating. So the found book, yeah, I've always been kind of a journaler. I have a lot of my old journals from when I traveled and kind of scrapbooked. So I loved using postcards and other items in there to keep track of what I was doing. I like to write. I've always kind of, I don't like to use the word scrapbook per se, because it doesn't have a, it's done in a more of a junk journal format, I guess. So yeah, so it's kind of been nice to get back in touch with those elements of my past history and bring them forward. So thank you so much for joining me on this edition. I hope that you found something here that you can take forward in your making, and I look forward to sharing with you more plans and projects in the upcoming month for Vlogmas. So I'm going to bid you a fond farewell. I hope wherever your fiber treks may take you, you return home safe and with lots of soulful stash, and I'll see you next time. Bye.